Hey guys, it's Erica with an A. Welcome to my channel where I give my lighthearted reviews and unapologetic opinions about these crazy reality TV shows. Now, guys, you already know Married at First Sight is my show, and we're going to dive right into the episode. But first, be sure to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to show your girl some love, and trust me, your girl needs some love. Now, I know my hair is looking a little crazy today. I'm sorry, guys. I just washed it, blow dried it. I'm going to straighten it while I do the review because I have a crazy day tomorrow. So just stick with me here, okay? So let's get started, all right? Now let me put my hair up first. I got the straightener up, and then we'll get started into the episode. All right, guys. So the episode starts off with Noi and Steve, and they are actually going to do a scavenger hunt that Noi put together, which I really thought it was super cute that she's putting this together because honestly, from last week, it was a lot of drama. She left, remember, in the middle of the night and didn't come back to the next day. So she definitely needs to redeem herself, and so I'm so glad she set this up for her and Steve. So it starts off that he's walking around the park and he's just picking up different things, different little hints. So he goes by a tree, he goes by the park, the pond, and all this cute stuff. And then he sees her at the end. She's like swinging on a swing, and he acts like he didn't see her there. And I'm like, y'all know he saw Noi sitting there. He tried to play it off like, oh, surprise. But I thought it was a really cute gesture. Now it goes to Mark and Lindsay next. And you guys already know the last episode, Lindsay went in on Mark, like in, okay? It was bad. I thought she was leaving. Like I thought she was going to say, forget this, I want a divorce, because that's how bad she went in on Mark. But anyway, so they're sitting at their dinner table, and looks like maybe Mark made them some food. And so they're cutting up the meat and being very awkward, like just sitting there not talking. And I was cracking up the way Mark was adding seasoning to his meal. Did y'all peep that? Like he added so much salt and sugar. Salt and pepper. I was like, dude, what the heck is going on with your meal? But anyway, so it starts off awkward. You could tell Lindsay doesn't really want to talk to him, which is a surprise because you know how Lindsay is. She don't know how to hold water, let alone not say anything in a conversation. But Mark kind of starts off the conversation of, the other day at the bowling alley. And he basically said, do you think that you handled yourself well at the bowling alley? And of course, Lindsay goes, well, yeah, I think I handled myself pretty well because you're constantly being negative, right? So she's basically like, every time we are in a group setting or in something that's a positive environment, you're bringing up this negative things about me, right? And so she's like, look, I'm sick of it. And I get her on that if she wasn't negative herself. Like the way she went in on him, girl, who's really being negative, right? And so he basically says that. He's like, I think you're a sweet person, but on the inside, I can see that there's a kind person there, but I'm just not seeing that kind person, right? And so I feel him. Like, I really think Lindsay's a good person, but god damn, that lady is just, woo, she got a mouth on her. She also lets Mark know that, he's treating her poorly and she wants to be treated better in their relationship. And I just don't know. I don't see what Mark is doing so bad. You know what I mean? I don't really see it. I get that he's distancing himself from you, but it's like, girl, can you blame him? You know what I mean? Anyways, so she basically says, look, I'm not feeling this. I used to be 100% in it, and now I'm like 1%. And I thought it was really cool that Mark took that information and he's like, all right, at least it's 1%. That means I still kind of there's hope there. There's hope in this relationship because at least there's 1%. And I'm like, you know what? For him to say that, I'm like, okay, he's willing to try to make it work with Crazy Lindsay. And hey, I'm all for it, okay? Now it goes on to Mike and Jasmina. So Mike and Jasmina are sitting down, still discussing how they can better communicate, right? So it was really cute. Mike took her to a park and he bought all of these gifts for her dog, which was sweet, trying to show her that, hey, I want to be a part of your life and I know that you love your dog, so I want to be a part of it too, right? So I'm thinking, oh, they're about to have a sweet conversation and get on the right track. Not. All right? It didn't happen, okay? So basically, he asked Jasmina a simple question. He said, hey, Jasmina, what is a way that I can better communicate with you when I have an issue with what you're doing? You know, if I have a concern, what's the best way to bring it to you? And couples ask this question. Men, females, we all ask this question of our spouse. If you're trying to do better, right? You ask this question of, hey, how can I better communicate with you? Jasmina, though, answers it with, well, you can have a conversation with me. And he's like, well, I get that, but how can I better communicate? And she's like, well, you haven't been having a conversation with me. You've been talking at me and not to me. And I'm like, I feel like this was the time that he's being vulnerable with you, saying, hey, how can I better communicate? And then you go negative. You know what I mean? That's how I was feeling. So then he tries to say it again, like, I get that, but how can I better communicate with you? Give me the tools. And this girl told me, okay, calm down. You're raising your voice. Calm down. Calm down. And I'm like, so is this what you mean by when you say that he's yelling at you? Because he wasn't yelling, honey. That was not a yell. Like, he was literally talking over you. Well, he was talking to you because there's an airplane coming across and he's saying, hey, how can I better communicate? Teach me. Still didn't get through to her. I'm like, Jasmina, I'm sorry. I was rocking with you and I could see that, you know, Mike had his red flags, but girl, you got some red flags too, okay? All right, moving on. O and Katina. So O is not going to live this non-cooking thing down for Katina. He wants a cooker, all right? He wants a chef at the kitchen, in the kitchen, and he wants that to be Katina, all right? So they basically talk about how, you know, his standards are he wants a wife to be, you know, a cooker, a cleaner, you know, that kind of thing. So before he even can talk about the food situation, he basically asked her this condescending ass question saying, okay, what do you think a wife is? What's your definition of a wife? And in my opinion, when someone asks that question, they're looking for like, you know, personality traits that wives could be better at, right? Like, so Katina gave like the example of, you know, being a support system, that kind of thing. And that's not what he was looking for. He wanted you to say a wife should be someone who cooks and cleans. And and I get it. That's some people's standards, but that is not just the full definition of what a wife is. Like, if I describe myself to my friends what a wife is, my first thing out my mouth is that I cook and clean. You know what I mean? Like, ugh, oh, it was pissing me off. Anyway, so he's basically saying, you know, does she meet up to my standards? That's what he basically says in his confession, that he feels like Katina's not meeting up to his standards. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a little different situation for Katina. Good luck. All right. So moving on, the experts put together a game for the couples to play. So this game is like, you know, where they drop off questions at the door, at each apartment door, and the questions that they ask each other to kind of open themselves up more and be more vulnerable. So it starts off with Noi and Steve. So they get their question box. Everything's going good. And the first question is, have you ever been in love? And so Noi, of course, has been in love because she's basically 90 Day Fiance because she only dates people out of the country. So of course she's been in love. And then Steve said he's been in love quite a few times, about 5 times. And it was funny to me that Noi found that like interesting, like that was odd or something that he's been in love that many times. And I'm like, I mean, to me, 5 times it's a lot, but it's not an odd number, right? If it was like I've been in love 20 times, then that's when I'm like, okay, this dude's just a serial dater that falls in love. But 5 times is that's just a regular number for me. Now moving on. So Noi and Katina, not Noi and Katina, scratch that. We're still on Steve and Noi. So Steve and Noi also talk about when is it too soon to tell someone that you love them, right? And so Steve is like, when it comes to love, I don't want to jump and say the word I love you if I don't mean it yet, right? I'm not in a hurry to tell someone I love them. And see, Noi's a little different. She was in love with Steve after 2 days, right? So it's just a little different for her. So she's like, of course I can, if I love someone, I'm not scared to say it, and I'm going to say it when I'm ready, right? And both opinions are valid, right? Because you don't want someone jumping in saying, I love you to everybody. You do want them to be, very direct on who they love. But at the same time, it doesn't need to be a difficult decision. So I do feel him on that. So now it goes to O and Katina. So, of course, the experts drop off their questions, and when they start talking, Katina's basically like, when it comes to love, I'm very guarded, and O's like, yeah, I can tell you're kind of guarded, and she's just like, because I was in relationships where, I was being verbally abused, right, and so I didn't feel comfortable coming to my spouse and being vulnerable with him, because when I used to cry, he would be like, shut up, stop crying, look at you crying, why are you crying, and all that stuff, right? And I felt bad for her when she was talking about that. And you can tell O kind of felt bad as well. But just like in O form, he kind of was like, you shouldn't feel that way. Why are you feeling that way? You should be able to cry. And I'm like, oh, he's just not sensitive at all to Katina. But anyway, so then they go on to the love question. So O first asked Katina, like, hey, when it comes to love, like, how do you feel about saying the word I love you, And she's like, I'm not there yet, but I can definitely see that happening, right? I want to be loved, that kind of thing, so I can see it happening. So she had a positive answer, right? Because that's what you should have in these conversations. Hope, right? So then she turns to O and she's like, okay, so how do you feel about, the word love and all that kind of thing? Are you comfortable saying it? In typical O fashion, he's like, well, when it comes to you, like, I like you, but I mean, I'm not in love with you yet. I'm not in love. Like, love is off the table. And I'm like, did he really have to respond like that? Like, he literally could have said, hey, I like you, but I'm not ready right now for the love. And she would agree. Like, she's not ready to say I love you to him either. She's just saying, I can see myself falling for you. That man, he's something else. Now she also is very vulnerable with him and says, hey, I know that there's things I need to work on, and I know that there's ways that I can make you, start to love me, and that's, being in the kitchen cooking, and caring about your needs and being supportive and that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that was sweet of her to say. And what did O do with that information? O was basically like, yeah, you do need to work on those kind of things. He's like, hopefully you can make it, hopefully you can work on those things. I hope so. And I'm just like, oh, we keep hearing everything that you need. We keep hearing it. But when are we going to hear what O can work on? Like, how is O going to fix himself for Katina? Right? Because Katina's in this marriage as well. I'm just saying. I'm just a viewer watching, okay? Now it goes to Jasmina and Mike. So, this couple has been struggling. But anyways, it starts off with, Mike seems a little down at the table. So Jasmina is talking to Mike. And she's like, hey, what's going on today? Like, what's been up? And he's like, actually, today's the day that my brother passed away. And it's the anniversary, and it's a little tough for me. And I went to the burial site to just drop off flowers and visit with him. And she's like, oh, I wish you would have told me, but oh, okay. And I'm like, Jasmina, this was your time to not make it about you, make it about Mike. You could have been like, oh, okay, do you go every year to visit your brother on the anniversary? Does your sisters go with you? Like, that kind of thing. That's what she should have said, but she didn't. She basically said, hey, you should have kind of told me. I could have went with you or something like that. And he's like, well, don't worry about it. I know you had to work. So they talk about the love situation, right? They get the same questions as everyone else. And so they asked, have you ever been in love before? And both of them, I think Jasmina said 3 times. Mike said 1.5. One was a high school sweetheart and the other one was a real relationship as adults. And so it went well, but both of them agreed that to fall in love, with a person, they're going to need that person to be vulnerable with them and open to have tough conversations and deep conversations. And right now, all of their conversations are real surface level, like how was work, right? How's the dog? They're not really diving deep. And so that's definitely, I'm glad the experts brought this question to them because those two need it more than ever. They need to connect because it's just not there. And you could tell they're just not feeling each other, especially Jasmina. She is not feeling this guy. So now it goes to Lindsay and Mark. And surprisingly, they're doing pretty good. Like, I'm proud of them because I did not think they were going to bounce back after that bowling alley. And I know y'all feel me, right? I don't think he's seen the tape yet. I don't think the producers have pulled him to the side and said, look what your wife's been saying about you. But if they did, he would not be there. But anyways, so they're doing pretty good. So they get their box and the question of have you been in love? And both of them have been in love. Mark basically was trying to explain to Lindsay that, he's been in love before, but he tends to kind of go back to exes, and realize, hey, I had a good thing here. I could make it work with that person. And I don't knock him for that. If that's what he wants to do, to each his own. But Lindsay made it sound like he has a problem. Like, she's like, oh, he goes back to people. Once I'm done with person, I just cut him off, da-da-da. And that's just how some people do it, So she was a little too judgmental on that aspect. But, that's Lindsay. She gonna judge poor Mark for every little thing he does. I feel so bad for the man. But anyway, she basically says, I do not recycle men. Once I'm done with them, I'm done with them. Okay? Now it talked about what both of them need out of a partner. And Lindsay was basically like, I need someone who is going to show up and be consistent. Basically what Mark's not doing, right? He's not being consistent with her. And then she asked the same question to Mark, and he's like, look, I need time to fall in love, and I need someone to be patient, which I thought was interesting because, guys, you remember when Lindsay was meeting up with his friends, they were like, I am shocked he hasn't said I love you because he falls in love very quickly. Did y'all peep that? Did y'all? Because I peeped it. Bless me. Because y'all didn't say excuse me. I just blessed myself. But anyways... So I did think it was a good conversation, but typical Lindsay, she just has to try to put Mark down every chance she gets, and I don't really understand it. All right, moving on. So all of the couples meet up. The boys meet up and the girls meet up. So first they show the boys, and they go to like this bow and arrow fight place. It was really dope. I want to look this up and see if they have one in the, Houston, Texas area, because I definitely want to go. It looks so fun. The ladies met up and they had like a spa day, got their nails done, that kind of thing. I don't know about you guys, but were you expecting Lindsay and Katina to be in the same room? Like, were you kind of like expecting that to really happen? Because I was thinking one of the ladies wouldn't show up, but I was surprised that they all came. And surprisingly, Katina and Lindsay got along perfectly. And I was like, kudos to you, Katina and Lindsay, because both of you guys were very it was the perfect situation. They both were very respectful of each other. They even spoke to each other and was agreeing with each other. Like, it was awesome. I love to see women getting along. And so I loved it. Okay. Now, I will say Lindsay was on her best behavior. Okay, Lindsay didn't do her usual, but I was very proud of them. All right, so going on. So they're all meeting up, talking about how's everything going, right? And first, Noi is saying, we've had a rocky couple of days, but we're trying to get back on track. And a lot of the other ladies agreed that week 3 is hell, right? The honeymoon's over, the wedding's over, all of that, and now they have to live their day-to-day lives, and it's a struggle. So everyone's struggling, okay? So each person's kind of giving their take on what's been going on. Katina also says she's really trying with O, and she's just trying to be a wife and trying to appease him and whatever he needs. Then it shifts to the boys. They're talking. And O is telling a different story. He's basically acting like he's thrown the towel in and ready to go. And I'm like, geez, I didn't know how he was feeling. Was like, I'm totally not even feeling Katina anymore. I was like, when did that shift change? Did y'all peep that? Like, he was overboard when it came to talking to the boys. But anyways, he was basically like, I feel like I'm babying her. Because, for me, when it comes to at night, after, I wrap it up for the day, I want the kitchen to be clean, the house to be clean, and then we go to bed. And I feel him on that. Some people are like that. And it's a good quality to have. But let's be real, not a lot of people do it. Okay, there's not a lot of people out here cleaning the whole house, the whole kitchen, and then going to bed. Why is there not a lot of people doing it? Because there's just not a ton of housewives out there with absolutely nothing to do but clean up all day. There's not business women out there that just have time to clean up all day. Oh, you know what I mean? But anyways, so he's complaining about Katina, and he's basically like, I don't know if I can put up with this. And I don't know, I was just so shocked by the conversation. Like, I just didn't expect him to be going in on her like he did. And basically he said, I need to break a tear to show her that I am beat. Now, I don't know about you guys. I have Infinity cable. I don't know what y'all got. But on my screen, it said, the subtitle said, do I need to break a chair to show her I am beat? But then if you hear it, it says, do I need to break a tear? Did anyone else peep this? Like, what did he say? Did he say break a tear or break a chair? Because that's two different things. I don't know if anyone else peeped that, but that's what my TV showed me. Let me know in the comments exactly what he said, because if it's break a chair, then oh boy's tripping. All right. Now, Mike also mentions that he's still having communication issues with Jasmina, and he's just trying to find a better way to have open conversation. And then it goes to Steve, and he's basically explaining to the guys that, hey, you have to be vulnerable, because that's what I did with Noi. When she did that whole noodle fiasco last week, and she came home, I had to let her know that this hurt me. And when I let her know, she realized, okay, I need to change my ways because I'm affecting my husband. And I feel Steve, because that's what you need to do to people. Be vulnerable and say, this hurt me. Not that I'm angry, but I'm hurt. So I was feeling him on that. But at the same time, I don't think it takes a man or a woman having to cry to show almost tears for you to understand their side. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Nori, I don't know. I just didn't like how she handled it last week, but that's just me. Well, no, it ain't just me. I think everybody else agrees. Nori handled it very childishly. But I love how Steve kind of flips that into a way that they can grow. I did like that. All right, then Mark's basically, Mark and Lindsay both agree 3 weeks have been crazy. Lindsay's like 3 weeks, it really sucked. So I'm hoping that the next week is better. And then it goes into their dates. So each couple kind of went on a date um, and did something that the other person doesn't necessarily do all the time. So, for example, Lindsay and Mark went on a date. Mark took her to eat sushi, which I thought was very cute because Lindsay loves sushi. So they went to a nice restaurant. He's not a raw fish kind of guy. So I was very interested to see what all of the rolls he's going to pick at the sushi place. But Lindsay, you know her, she's very direct and bossy. So she picked out their meal for him, which I was like, Lindsay, let him pick out his own meal. He already don't want to be there. But anyways, so she picks out the meal. He doesn't really care for the raw fish, but he's a good sport about it, which, hey, I like that she, introduced him to new things, but make sure you're not too pushy about it. You know what I mean? Anyways, I thought it was adorable how Mark really tried to express to her that he wants to be in this process. He wants to make it work. He said, I promise to not cause you pain. And I thought that was really sweet of him. I hope that Lindsay can reciprocate that. Because you could tell she felt loved in the situation and appreciated. But I don't know if she's going to really feel that throughout the process. But I just love how he broke it down. Like, I don't want you to feel pain. I want you to feel appreciated. And so I think it really went a long way with Lindsay. But we'll see, because that girl can flip in a minute. Okay? Y'all already know. All right, so then Jasmina and Mike, Jasmina decides, hey, I'm finally going to be sweet to this guy. And she made this exercise date in their apartment. And I thought it was super cute because Mike is a personal trainer. So she's basically like, hey, I'm going to work you out today. And he's like, okay, I'm feeling you. So they do cute little exercises. And then the last exercise, they get down to a deep conversation, right? It almost had me crying. It was so deep, So they're stretching, doing their workout, and she's basically like, I want you to open up about your past and tell me about Mike as a kid type thing. And so he's basically like, my situation, I dealt with so much loss in my childhood that has affected me. And so he starts explaining, he lost his mom, his dad, his grandma, and his brother at a young age, right? And so he talks about his brother who he lost when he was like 8 years old. And he goes down the story of how, he basically saw it, right? His brother came home. Someone was beating on the door like, hey, your brother's been shot, and he sees him laying out on the sidewalk. He talks about his mom's fainting, his aunts being there. It was very traumatic. I can only imagine at 8 years old seeing that. So I love that he opened up to Jasmina and she saw that softer, vulnerable side. And she was, he shed tears. He was crying. This is still affecting him. And so I'm glad she saw that. And she was very warm to him as well. She moved closer. You could tell she wanted to embrace him, but also give him his space. It was a powerful moment. So I loved that. Now going on to Mike and Lindsay. Lindsay surprised Mark with a trip to like a go-kart fun park kind of thing. And it looked really cute. You could tell they were having a good time. They were laughing, no deep conversations or anything like that, just having a good time. Truthfully, I think Mark and Lindsay will do better in a one-on-one setting than they do in group settings. I really do, because in group settings, Lindsay puts on a show almost, and then Mike gets embarrassed. But if it's just them two, I think they get along better. Did y'all peep that? That's what I think when it comes to Lindsay. She needs to be on a one-on-one setting with somebody, okay? She's a little extra. All right, 21 days of marriage, y'all. They are on 21 days, 3 weeks. It feels like they've been married much longer, in my opinion. But anyways, so it shows O and Katina. So they're going to do a cooking lesson. And you know, O set this up because he's like, I want this wife of mine to know how to cook for me. So they go to this cooking lesson, and ooh, guys, that food looks good. I wanted that food so bad. The shrimp was just perfectly fried, and the salmon looked so good. I was just, whoo, I just couldn't stop staring at the food. But anyways, so O just kind of kept making little slick comments like, oh, you know, you need to cook like this. Can you remember this recipe so you cook this at the house, all that kind of thing. And you could tell Katina's just like, let me go with the flow, right? Let me laugh it off, even though it's getting a little annoying. All right. So they sit down, and he's like, this food's so good. And Katina's like, gosh, you acting like I never feed you or something. And he's like, I'm gonna be honest, you don't feed me like this. And I'm like, oh, here we go with the food conversation. All right, so she's like, you know, all jokes aside, I do feel like I've been putting in some effort here. And he's like, I haven't really seen it. And I'm like, oh Lord, it's about to get ugly. So he brings up the whole housewarming situation. And he basically says, look, you didn't get none of the food. You called your friends to bring food. I had to bring the chicken. Like, you didn't put much effort into, you know, the housewarming. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, I helped get decorations. I was trying to get the house together. I had a lot going on. So I designated other people to do certain jobs. And hey, I'm with you, Katina. I think it's better to work, you know, smarter, not harder, right? You ain't got to be in the kitchen cooking that fried chicken. You can get your friends to get the sides. I get you, Katina. But I think the housewarming situation was a time that you kind of show him that you can, you know, entertain at your home. I do agree with him on that. But the way he said it to her, out of line. Katina, you are better than me. I would have got up from that table. Anyways, let's dive into what he said. I'm going to leave a clip. Y'all go check it out, and then we'll come back.
I feel as though I am putting in effort, but I can see the areas where you do put more than me.
You're still learning. You're still learning. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's things on other fields, I'm still learning. But when it comes to a marriage, those are some of these things are the things that I expect to be already there. I'm trying to figure out if you have that base. That's really what I'm trying to figure out right now. I have achieved big things where, I bought a home on my own. I paid off my student loans. I don't have these problems anymore. And you're still working on those things. And there's nothing wrong. You're bettering yourself. But I'm trying to figure out what can my wife do independently that I can say, on a wife level, I'm satisfied. You know what I'm saying?
I think I need to know what are you seeking on a wife level that you feel like
just basics. Like, I felt like you didn't apply enough to the housewarming. It's got cool. You called them, but you didn't grab it. Your friends went and got it. They brought that. I heard you.
I would have done it.
Would have, should have, could have, but you did it. And you,
I think you're being
as your husband, that's why I stepped up and I said, you know what? I'll handle the chicken.
everything that those girls did. I told them to do all that. I just physically did not do it because I was at the apartment. We had to go shopping. I did the decorations, and then even with the
Tina, let me stop you because you're not even comfortable with what you just said.
I am.
I was with you when we did the shopping, and I was with you when we decorated. She put effort into my housewarming because we went and got the stuff, but I absolutely believe that she could do more. What I'm trying to say is that you said you orchestrated and made this whole thing happen, correct?
Yes.
What part did you do on your own? You work at home. You did not physically get out of the house and go get these things. So hold on. So when we talk about a wife level, this is what I look at. Because I'm telling you how I feel.
I know,
need to see where you are as a woman. If you don't want to cook, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna clean? I can't settle with somebody if I think they don't have a base on just being an adult, because they don't have enough life experience, and that's the disconnection that I'm having with you. That's how I truly feel inside with me. I care for you so much, but it bothers me because I don't know where you stand. I have to see what you picked up. What does my wife can? Is she a fast learner? I need to know who I'm married to.
You know what? I need a break. I do.
All right, we're back. See what I mean, guys? That was the most. So basically, O is like, look, I want to make sure whoever I marry is on a wife level. Okay? Wife level. All right? And so he's like, do you have the base of being an adult? And I'm like, who is this guy talking to? Because it couldn't be me. He's saying because he has a home and because he has paid off all his student loans, that he is somewhat more of an adult than Katina. And I'm like, hey, kudos to you. Oh, I'm proud of you for that, buying a home. I'm proud of you for paying off your student loans, because I ain't paying those mugs off. So I'm proud of you. But to put her down for not having those things, like that is the definition of an adult. Like, who are you? I was in shock. So he's basically like, I want to know where you are as a woman. And once he says that, Katina's over it. Like, she's like, you know what? I need a little break. And she handled it perfectly, because truthfully, when any man comes for a woman's womanhood, if you come for my womanhood and act like you know what a woman is supposed to be versus me, it's a slap in the face. So basically, Katina's getting overwhelmed. She starts crying because she's just like, I don't feel good enough for this guy. He's making me feel little and making me feel small. So she's crying in the confessional. She's crying at the table. And I thought that was such a messed up conversation. I just do not like how he carried himself. Shame on you. Oh, and you really deserve, Katina, an apology, because that was just that just wasn't called for. You simply could have said, hey, when I look for her as a woman, I want her to be able to cook and clean. I know we're not there yet because you have been single. So I will work with you on, getting to where you can clean up, at night before we go to bed, or that kind of thing. I'll work with you. But to act like this single chick is supposed to know exactly what you want, and she don't know you, it's been 3 weeks. Boy, please. I can't stand O after this one. He really pissed me off. But anyways, and then it goes to the end of the episode. So that's the end, guys. It was a good episode as far as conversation, but I did want to see a little bit more drama, but that's just me. But it was really good for conversation. Me and my husband, we had a debate for about 30 minutes about O, because he was crazy this episode. Anyways, guys, it's been a good time. I finished my hair. It's not styled, guys. I just needed it straightened, and I'll style it in the morning for work. But be sure again to like and subscribe if you like my my review / recap of what happened. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. I think next week's episode is gonna be good. All right, like and subscribe. Bye, guys. Good night.